Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another edition of the show. Stardate 2016.055 at 22:02 Eastern Standard Time. Welcome to Star Trek Online, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. No tribbles allowed, please, because my chief logistics officer here, Captain TimberWolf, is not too fond of them, let's put it that way.
I eat them.
Yeah, no. You need to stay off of that. You shed every single time you eat one of those bastards. Do not eat another tribble.
Hey, I can't help SOB keeps bringing them on the damn ship. I'm just saying.
Speaking of which, a chief of cheesy tactics who always likes to cause some sort of chaos and distraction for the real issues at hand, Captain SOB. I hear you're causing more trouble around here too, aside from feeding TimberWolf some tribbles.
Well, there's been a lot of tears recently. It's been a great week.
And I hear it's all your fault.
I hear it is.
And if you couldn't detect that there was some sort of sarcasm in that statement, let me introduce you to our chief logistics officer around here. Not him. No. We want the intelligence officer. Man, it's been a long day. Our chief intelligence officer, who really should detect more than just sarcasm around here. Captain SarcasmDetector.
Usually I'm just kind of too busy detecting irony on the internet.
Is that like Mississippi gravel right there?
No, that's Ottawa gravel.
Oh. So you're going down to the grade A stuff. I see. Well, hopefully you'll get checked out after you eat that junk by our chief ironic medic, Captain NK!
Well, that actually reminds me that SOB is kind of overdue for his appointment. Something about him causing tears.
You know, I think he does need to get checked out.
I don't know.
He'll be there.
I'm not
He'll be
sure
there
why-
as soon as he finishes
I'm not
his
sure
detention.
why everyone's crying around SOB, but that seems to be some problem that I can work with.
Well, when he's done with his detention, brought to you by TeacherKirby, we'll make sure he gets properly checked out. By the way, TeacherKirby, I heard that you had a nice teacher's corner that came out recently.
Yes, I did. I do. It's actually, we've seen the price of this particular item actually go up since I've posted it on YouTube, so should be interesting.
Uh-oh. Here comes another accusation of the show rigging the market.
Yeah, well, it's a good item, so that's the only reason I did it.
Whatever, rigging market. Anyway, moving along here. Chief of Cheesy Tactics, could you please announce who our winner is for this T6 Mirror Ship Pack?
Hold on. I know I'm not very well known, but I'm not fucking invisible either.
Who said that?
Who's this guy? Who is this guy?
said
Who
that?
invited this guy here?
Wow.
Who is this guy?
Wow.
I mean,
It
you
seems to be our emergency role-playing hologram. I happened to activate him.
Wait,
I
hold on a
have
second.
feelings too.
Did you fill out the paperwork for that, Timberwolf? Why didn't I see it on my desk?
I did, but then he decided he wanted to fill it out as well, so I had to make sure of that. He does qualify as a sentient being at this point, so
Hologram
Yeah.
lives matter.
I once he signed it, I had to send it directly to command.
I see. I mean, it's not like this guy's been featured on 2 different major gaming websites or had somebody else's production use his footage on more than 2 occasions here. But, nah, we don't know who this guy is. But
Which,
thank you,
by the
Zev
way,
Films, for showing up.
congratulations, Alan, on that website actually using your videos for its article.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was the highlight of my Monday for sure.
We're gonna have to come up with a new running gag.
Well, apparently Odin just started one. Just look right through the protons and move right on. I understand. I'll just sit here.
Let photons be free, Alan.
Yep. Photonic lives matter. Yes.
It wasn't cohesive in front of my face. I didn't see your 3D matrix align properly. My apologies. Photonic lives matter. Sorry. Hashtag whatever you want. Now that the running gag has been overplayed, SOB, please give us the winner for the T6 Mirror Ship Pack.
So, congrats to Jessie TheMedic. I've sent you a message with the code on YouTube, so make sure to go check that. And thanks all for entering.
So enthusiastic. I love it.
That's celebratory. Like, I can feel the confetti floating through the air right now.
I ran out of coffee.
Dude, we need to ship you more coffee later. Well, you know what? Since you ran out of coffee, you should be able to bleed us right into the patch notes.
Ooh, these patch notes, they have a lot of very nice things in them. What I really like is we're finally, after, what has it been, like 2 years? We're finally going to get categories for salvage technology, fleet ship modules, and ship upgrade tokens on the exchange.
Does that mean that your ground game is now enhanced?
Yes.
Oh wait, does that mean we're not going to be using the lieutenant category anymore?
You don't have to anymore, correct?
My bargain hunting game is now enhanced. Excellent.
But one of the big things here in this patch, the destabilized plasma torpedo no longer benefits from cooldown reductions and other enhancements triggered by projectile weapons. The reason is this item is a console, not a weapon.
No,
What do you think of this, Odin?
I think you need to read it with a little bit more emphasis on there. Let me give this a shot. Destabilized plasma torpedo no longer benefits from the cooldown reductions and other enhancements triggered by projectile weapons. This item is a console, not a weapon.
710 Cisco, 1010 with rice.
Does that ring bell? You know, does that ring a little bit more?
That rung our audience a bit, probably.
It feels like you wrote that patch note, sort of.
No,
It does. It does.
No, but if I were to write a patch note, that probably is where I would go with it. So I'm happy with it.
Short and sweet and to the point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, what else was there, Captain SLB, that was changed recently?
Well, this was a very popular ground ability. It saddens me greatly to see that it has been balanced out with the other equivalent abilities. The concussive tachyon emission from the Delta Tier 5 reputation. It's now got a fixed 5-minute cooldown that cannot be reduced by TAC Initiative or Chronoton Jolt. This has led to lots and lots of crying from various channels.
Aw, shucks.
Wait, hold on. Hold up a second. Are you telling me that prior to this fix, this 5-minute cooldown did not behave like other cooldowns of its type?
It actually had like a 90 or 2-minute cooldown? 90 second or 2 minutes, I forget, but a lot of people use this as their sole source of damage on the ground, and now you have to learn how to actually play ground to, do ground.
Yeah, it used to have a 2-minute cooldown that was reduced by both Carnoton Jolt and Tactical Initiative. So that is no longer the case.
On behalf of the show, I would like to say mission accomplished. We have successfully taken the decision away from the ground players.
Does that mean we'll get blamed like PvP players too?
We're going to drop stock in baby shampoo.
But in reality,
Pretty
concussive tachyon emission was absurdly powerful when you could just chain it constantly. I mean, there were people getting, upwards of 600-700 from it. I think there was someone that got 1,000 DPS from just it. It was quite insane.
All fixed now.
What about the pets? I heard there's been some decent pet changes here that won't cause them to suck so bad.
Suck a little less, maybe. Yeah.
Well, if they don't want them to suck completely, they should just give all pets scratch the paint. But
What about this added full impulse ability to carry a frigates? Wow. There's a reason why I choose Stuttering Officer, you know. Breen frigates, Callisto Light escorts, Alachi frigates, Herald frigates, the Klingon well, I can't even say this one. Whatever frigate, Krenim frigate, Tholian frigate, and the Zindi frigate all can now use full impulse. The Fekiri, whatever. Somebody who can actually speak Klingon will have to correct me on that one, please.
Fekiri is fine.
So I see there's a few torpedo changes here, Odin. What do you think of these?
If they actually fix the damage component that is associated with the mod gain, then I would say 2 thumbs up. Let's fix the rest of the torpedoes like this. Because the corrosive plasma and the Lachi subspace, correct me if I'm wrong, both of those are Lobi. Lobi torps. What other Lobi torps have some issues there? TDD comes to mind. That needs to be fixed too. But we'll get to that. But speaking of which, we'll take a small tangent on this one here. How'd you like your new T6 Simi and the use of a torpedo on it?
I quite enjoy the scimitar with the torpedo on it and Oxtabat. I believe it's the new meta. What do you think, Cam?
No, it's not going to be the new meta.
you shut your filthy mouth.
No, here's the thing. SOB wants me to talk about how, Oxtabat's making a comeback. And the thing is, it's not really a comeback per se. It's more along the lines of some of the newer players into the DPS, players who are learning DPS, are just starting to figure out things that some of us have already known for quite a few years now. Now, the DPS community is expanding. You can no longer say that it's less than 1% of the total player base of STO. I think we're closer to maybe 15 to 20% of the STO player base. It's really, really growing. So people are starting to figure this stuff out. And Oxtabat has always been a intermediate ability. It's basically a crutch that helps lower end DPS players to intermediate players get their scores up. It's always been that way. So that hasn't changed at all. Also a cheaper ability to use because you can just use time to grind for the buffs required for it. So the point is, a lot of these players are, using this crutch ability and getting higher numbers. And for the time being, it's working well for them. Eventually, they're going to figure out stuff that we've already known for 3 or 4 years. And that, you get better results from actually not using Oxtabat on a ship that's extremely heavy on tactical bridge officer seatings.
Well, now, we have the school of
I only
Oxtabat.
run Oxtabat for you, Cam. It's all for you.
But you do so well with it. Why would you not run Oxtabat?
No.
Well, because you could probably do better without it.
Well,
And the debate continues.
Cam had the caveat at the end of his statement with tack-heavy ships. He's absolutely right. It's just not. It's not even a crutch. I actually think it's a false crutch because you think it's improving your DPS on a platform like that, and it's definitely not. You just have to put some thought into your build. And A2B on that type of build is no thought. Right, Cam?
Correct. Do you have anything over 5 tactical seats? Especially if you're talking a ship that has 6 or 7 or can fit 8 tactical seats, why do you need to run Oxtabat in the first place?
I'm running command abilities.
We'll
Okay.
continue this one on a later episode. Moving right along. Subspace Vortex is now behaving properly when more than one rank is equipped at a time. It used to be that, oh, this is nice. Subspace Vortex can once again be activated while using Enhanced Battle Cloak and Cloaked Barrage, but is no longer usable when using Phase Shift or while your auxiliary subsystem is offline. And this one, I believe, SOB, you'll love this one here. Description on Coalition Disruptors now correctly states that the proc lasts for 30 seconds instead of 20. I mean, it's a tooltip change, but still, you must like that.
It's very nice.
Now, this one has puzzled me here. Resolved an issue that was causing a Lachi subspace torpedo launcher to incorrectly deal slightly more damage than intended. That probably explained those one-hit wonders in PvP.
That says slightly.
Well, slightly, and then you amp up the damage considerably, But, those are for those idiots that run all exploiters on a torpedo, right? Right? Anyway.
Just running torps in general.
You know what? I'm going to blow you up next time I see you. Oh, by the way, you golded your neutronic torpedo. Congratulations.
It was cheap.
It was cheap. Yes, really cheap. Mirror Universe outfits. This one I know there have been a bunch of people complaining about this for quite a while. So, Space Barbie fans, rejoice. Your qualms have actually been settled now. Everything's good. You can now change you can now have more choices for your color palette for the female shorts. No more gray or orange or tabby pink. You got more colors now. Dagger armbands are now available on the male bare chest options. Down TimberWolf, down Kirby. You got rank options, whatever that means. Resolved an issue where legs were not appearing for Trill, Packlet, and Talaxian females when wearing the Terran shorts. That's kind of big. A little bit big. You got no legs, girl. What happened? Now, if we can get some of that love over for the KDF, they will appreciate it too. Especially for their ships, like, the Core and the Portascu. Just saying. Anything else on the patch notes that would be worth mentioning here?
They mentioned something about fixing some of the graphics issue with the Tier 6 Bortascu. So there's no longer holes when you mix and match parts with the Tier 5.
Either I missed it completely because I see it not here. Wait.
It's under general.
It's under general?
Yeah, it's the next point after added the following search categories to the exchange.
Resolved an issue where the T6 Mortascu, Kalis, Martok, and Gorkon had floating parts, holes in geo, and gaps when mixing certain parts together. Alright, now can we get that for the core? Can we actually unlock a costume for the core? Just to see. Oh, I'm sorry, Valken. It was not fixed. It was just ignored? What? Regardless, we're going to move on. It still has holes? It still has some holes? Okay, thank you. According to Valken, it says it still has some holes that were seen on there, but hopefully they will get fixed. One thing that we did not see here on these notes, and hopefully they'll be coming up very soon, something about server performance issues and client-server communication. Now, granted, we've had some, how should I put it, entity that's been causing problems recently. But the problems that we are talking about have existed for well over a year now. And we'd like to see some sort of resolution with it. We've seen pockets where it would get better, but then sink back down into previous states, or even worse, and then get better again. SOB, please, tell me what you think.
I think that they can't continue using this DDOS as an excuse and a constant scapegoat for the server performance issues. It's they're not being DDoS constantly, and they surely haven't been been DDoS constantly for the last year. But it's just, yeah, terrible.
I mean, let's be truthful here. Compared to last year with this Omega event, which one is better, this year or last year?
Actually, I think this year is a little bit better. At the start, it was really bad, and leading up to the event, we had some pretty bad lag. But I think currently, as it stands, we're in a lot better state than we were last year.
Oh, you missed the hives the other night, Cam.
We're talking overall. I mean, it was. I would have to agree with Cam on this one here, because overall last year was just. It was just okay. Get in, barely be able to do the event, and then log off, not even bothering to do anything else.
Yeah, my frustration level is less this year for sure.
Now, granted, we do see a lot of activity with, especially with STFs, where it's just, oh my gosh, I'm trying to activate a power and it's gone. Why is this?
Yep, still seeing misfires, still seeing a lot of lag there. Like SOB just said, hives, which especially depend on timing and skills and things like that going off, when those fail, that can blow a whole hive, you know, as SOB can attest to. If, you know, 1-2 people catch too much aggro, too many people blow up, you lose the optional, etc., etc. A lot of times that's a warp out.
Now, TimberWolf, you have some information here that I think is pertinent to this discussion.
Yeah, I've been looking through all this paperwork. I swear, too much paperwork, Odin. And the announcements come through that not only are we getting tomorrow's patch, they are doing additional server maintenance over the next 2 days. It's a part of regularly updating their internal infrastructure, from what they're saying. So they're going to be working on it at 2 separate times. The first time is tomorrow between 6 and 9 a.m. I'm assuming their time. Yep, Pacific Standard. And then continues on Friday from 6 a.m. to 12 p.m. And they're saying that you can still play during these hours, but certain services might be slower or unavailable. But these are not a part of your regular patch. They're trying to do other fixes to their infrastructure, which they really don't describe much there, but I wouldn't expect them to do much. But there is additional patches that may slow down your game while you're playing, or could cause additional lag if you're trying to run instances. So it's probably best during those time frames. If you start to see the lag, just kind of log off and give it time, unless you really want to struggle with it, because they are going to be working on it quite a bit.
Now, we actually had reached out to try and get someone who's involved with network infrastructure or network and systems, but unfortunately we haven't received a response yet as far as whether we can actually interview somebody with those credentials. So unfortunately we're left to speculate as far as what they may or may not be working on. I personally think they're going to make some improvements to their PNAP and extend their network boundary a bit, so that way they can get more ISPs feeding them data from different parts of the world, and hopefully start to manage their traffic a little bit better between SDO, Neverwinter, and any other games that they host within their data centers.
Well, I've got the link up for everybody to look at. If you want to respond, if you want to note anything you're seeing, it will be up in the show notes. So just give that a read over, interpret it how you will. but just be aware there are multiple maintenance cycles coming through over the next 2 days. So you might have a headache. They might take it down for longer than needed to ascertain some of the fixes they're trying to do while it's live. So just be patient, everyone.
And you know what? I would like to echo TimberWolf's words there. If they're making fixes for this, be patient. Let them do their work. And don't complain, oh, STL was down, blah, blah, blah. If it means that we have to deal with a 6 to 12 hour window of them taking the servers down to build a better infrastructure for us to enjoy it for a lot longer, I'm all for that. Please do that.
Yes, it's what we've been asking for.
Yeah,
so please be patient.
Can't really work on this stuff while it's on, at least not effectively. It's like trying to work on a car while it's on.
Now, on to some really good stuff here. If anybody got what Salami Inferno was having everybody guess at last week, and you guessed Skill Tree Revamp, ding, 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 you win a prize. You know what? I'll get you to find if you can prove it. But, Tree Revamp already changed at least once on Tribble. I haven't had the time to thoroughly go through everything on Tribble on there. But Sarcasm has put out a nice little introductory video on it, with a couple of his thoughts. And I believe something got changed that you mentioned should be changed there, Sarcasm. Go ahead and take it away.
Oh boy. First thing I want to say is what's on Tribble right now is not going to be the final form. There's a lot that needs to be adjusted. It needs to be polished, for sure. One of the things I did mention was the fact that you had in our current system, driver coil is actually fairly important, especially at the lower levels. And it's a low-level skill, driver coil. So you can hit it immediately as soon as you start getting skill or expertise. Right now, you can start inputting driver coil. And what that does, it has two things. Of course, there's the sector space speed. So you're not stuck at flying around at warp 5. You can, push it a little bit higher than that. There's also the second portion of that, which is the amount of power that gets drained from your subsystems while you're at full impulse. Now, that hasn't been touched yet, but one of the things, I gave this suggestion in the thread, and they actually picked up on it, and they've changed the unlock level from being 10 points to 5 points for getting the sector space unlock for that. Of course, driver coil has itself been removed and its features have been split between unlocks and several different skills. So yeah, that's certainly interesting. Now, one of the things they did this week is that they turned off copying characters from Holodeck to Tribble in order to actually have people give some feedback on how it is to level with this new skill, this revamped skill system. What do you guys think about that? Let me specify here, who here actually has gone onto Tribble, apart from myself, and tested us?
I have.
Negative Speed Racer.
It's very disappointing to me to see that we really can't test the new system yet. It's just too limited with new characters. We can't access any items from C-Store ships or anything like that for testing. It's a bit of a pain.
Heaven helps SOB test anything without all of his cheese already in place.
Well, there's a lot of things we need to know if it's going to have a positive or negative impact on.
Now, so far, I'm liking the system. There are a couple of questions that I have about it. Some things that you spec into and you're not seeing where that skill is being placed. The only way to tell if you actually have it is if you were to run a combat parser to verify if it's actually working. But I do like so far what they've done with the new system. combining powers, adding new things in. I think it's definitely going to be good to help players understand what they're speccing into, and it might make for more interesting builds depending on how you're speccing it with the new system. But they do have a ways to go, like Cam said. I do agree. I'm looking forward to them refining it and hopefully, and I say this with all hope, hopefully listening to some of the player comments, concerns, and their ideas for making it a little bit better before it actually gets released.
One of the big things myself that I'm really looking forward to them changing is the tactical and engineering ultimate abilities. Because, well, they're both crap right now. The science ultimate is the only one that's good at all, and even then, it's barely worth it.
Yeah, last time I tested the tactical ultimate ability, first time I tested it, I actually happened to like it, SOB. But after their most recent patch, it's now no more than it reads the same as if it was a console. It's not worth specking the extra points in, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I really liked the part where you can get 2.5 seconds of cooldown reduction to all of your bridge officer abilities once every 2 minutes. That's worth it.
Is it really that bad?
Yes.
It was good. Originally, when the ultimate ability out, it was called Focused Frenzy, and from my testing, you are marking a target the same way you would sensor analysis, and you had it up for 15 seconds, and each shot, that energy shot that landed on the marked target, would increase your firing cycle haste by 2.5%. If you spec'd even further, you get a 2.5% all damage boost, the cooldown reduction, and if you went all the way through it, you would have from what it looked like, they worded it as a chance to cast to teammates. The thing that made it worth it for me to test was during the 15 seconds that it was active on a target, that's when its cooldown activated. So by the time the target was destroyed, most cases, it was already able to be used again. You could almost pretty much use it like a sensor analysis. The moment target popped, you'd pop it on something else. When the recent change came out, that went from a 15-second timer while it's activated to a 2.5-minute cooldown after it's done with its 15 seconds, which to me reads no more than if you were running the Crenum Psi console or the flagship tactical computer, except you weren't wasting a console slot for it, but you did have to spec very heavily in tactical just to get it, which some people would be specking into points they would never use on their builds.
That was one of the bigger things that I actually had a complaint about with this as well. Is some of these things here, I get it. Not every build is going to be identical, which is a good thing. But at the same time, when you've just made things that simple, I mean, we're looking at tier 1. It was either cloak, enhanced cloak, or carrier pets. A lot of people don't have pets and they don't use cloak. So already that's useless to them. Completely useless.
This is actually gonna maybe hurt. Like my specific build, I could see it getting hurt pretty bad by the revamp. I'm hoping it will open up customization for everybody, but right now, I'm kind of pessimistic about a like a dual spec min max situation. It doesn't look very likely that I'll be able to hit the Psi ultimate and still be able to spec enough into engineering to heal enough hull. Might be challenging.
I will say.
Actually, sorry, let me jump in. I think you theoretically should be able to mimic what you have right now for the engineering, the healing, the engineering parts, and get the ultimate, the science ultimate, and
you know which one.
And then put points into tactical to equal what you have currently. I think it should be possible.
I'm hoping for, it would be really nice, and not to bring up another game in the midst of an STO podcast, but I don't know if anyone out there is a fan of Path of Exile. It's a really complex game with a really complex skill system. And one of the things that's really nice about it is the developers have provided a skill builder on their website that just lets you pop in points here and there and see how that affects different skills and things like that. And I don't know how difficult that would be to mock up, but it would be really nice to see, especially if they're going to continue to charge for respecs, which apparently is the case. It would be really nice to have some kind of skill builder or something like that put together for the new system that people could use.
I'm pretty sure the STO Academy guys are probably sweating over it right
You're
now.
probably right, actually.
Right, but why should we have a third-party entity do something like this?
Yeah, in the PoE example, it's right on their website. It's a first-party thing.
Some of the things I'm actually looking at here, real quick though, are I'm hoping some of the values actually change for the bonuses on the ultimate tree, because 1% crit hit versus 5 crit D rating, that seems a little bit skewed, don't you think?
Yeah,
Isn't that what we currently have?
No.
Yeah, it's kind of a theme. The 1% crit chance, the 5 crit severity. If you want to put 2 points into Ox power or engine power, they're pretty low bonuses considering.
One of the things also for the crit chance and severity, the crit chance skill and tactical gives you 6% crit chance with 3 points. Yet the crit severity gives you 20% with 3 points. And to me, I'm not even sure I'm going to put a single point in crit severity. It's just too low.
Well, if you look at what we have currently for the specialization skill. If you put 1 point in crit chance and 1 point in crit severity, just 1 point in each, that will give you the same as if you had put 9 points into both specialization points at the top of the tree. So if you put 2 points in each, you're already ahead of what we have currently on holodeck. And this is actually something I really want to tell people about. Do not assume that you have to put 3 points into something in order to equalize what you have on holodeck. A lot of these things in this skill revamp, you only need to put either 1 or 2 points to equal 9 points in the current system, or even 9 points into multiple systems, because a lot of the skills have been fused together, for example. So it's one thing I've noticed. We've looked at it. Several people have looked at it, and it'll be entirely possible to replicate, and actually Bordicus has done it several times on the forums already. It'll be entirely possible to replicate your build exactly as it is right now on holodeck into the revamp system and come out with a lot of points to spare that you can add in. Remember, there's also additional skills that are new and added in, like the pen skills, the hull, the armor pen, and the shield pen. Those are new. Those didn't exist before. And again, like the crit severity and the crit chance skills, what we have is equal to 1 point right now. So you can put 2 extra points in there. Of course, there's diminishing returns, so the 3rd point might not be worth it. I believe if you have 2 points in critical chance, it's 5.2% chance.
5.1.
5.1. So you for that 3rd point, it's like 0.9%. Not worth it. Not worth it at all. So there's some calculation that needs to be done here.
There's another big one. The long-range sensors, I believe it's called. What do you think of that?
The one that extends the fall-off range. Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay, so one thing they've done here is that they normalize the drop-off rate between cannons and beams, right? So it used to be, it starts off at 2 kilometers, and at 10 kilometers, cannons are doing 40% of their damage, and beams are doing 60% of their damage. That's at 10 kilometers, which is the maximum range. They changed it to 50%, so it's a bit of a buff to cannons and a slight nerf to beams. It's not
snap.
the end of the world.
Not at all. I mean, especially with the new skills, that'll mitigate it immediately. So
Exactly. Just putting 1 point into this new skill puts it at 60% right away. It adds 10% or 10% to the drop off. So just one skill will actually equalize you with what you had for beams, that is, and put you way ahead for cannons. If you put all 3 points into the skill, then it's
I am super excited for this because it's not going to be the complete end of the beam meta. Beams are still really nice for people that want a broadside, etc. But there are some really good pilots out there. Really, really, really good pilots out there, especially with spike damage. And I'm really excited to see what these guys are going to be doing with the buff to cannons. And now they don't have to necessarily get in people's faces to do a lot of damage, which means the tanks can even do a better job.
Yeah, it brings it up to 80% damage at 10 kilometers for both beams and cannons. For beams, yeah, that's nice 20% over what we have right now. For cannons, it's actually doubling the amount of damage they do at maximum range at 10 kilometers. So, woohoo! And that's fantastic if you're in a scatter volley build, because it's a very narrow arc, and you have to actually put some distance to capture multiple enemies in that arc. If you get too close, then you're not hitting everyone. So this actually is fantastic for cannons. So in that regards, the meta will shift. For beams, it's going to be definitely still an advantage to beams. So yeah, generally it looks like the skill revamp is actually going to be a buff overall. There are still some things that are concerning, like the changes to the aux power scaling.
Yeah, a bug though, and I think Bordicus tweeted that it's definitely something he recognizes.
Yeah, apparently it's a bug. There's actually a forum post about that, so we'll see that hopefully being changed. There's also the normalization of the skills, of the science skills. So that might take a little bit of a hit, but Bordicus has indicated that they will look at some things on a case-by-case basis. So it might actually improve in the long run. Don't panic quite yet. One thing I do want to bring up, Spencer mentioned that they blocked us from moving characters over from holodeck to Tribble right away in order to do the heavy duty testing. This thing is still months away. It's still, well, I wouldn't say months. It's still far away. It's going to take us a while to actually see this arrive. I think they said it's either going to be early spring or late spring. Probably more towards the late spring, where 11.5 comes out. So we still have at least 2, 3, 4 weeks of testing ahead of us, if not more. It's certainly interesting seeing some of the on the forum thread for the official responses to the skill revamp. It actually hit 16 and a half pages of people giving advice and suggestions and talking about the skill. But not a single person actually responded to the questions they had, which is, how do you feel about the skill revamp as you're leveling up a new character? And I actually went in today and I thought about it for a while. It took me a few days to actually wrap my head around the skill progression as a new character, and came up with a reply. First one in like 16 and a half pages. So hopefully there'll be a couple more people that will answer this question. Remember, this is testing. You don't want to jump right away into the deep end of the testing. The devs want to, it's a new system. They want to, get feedback on certain portions of it a little bit at a time, so as to not overwhelm it. I mean, I think Bort mentions that the first trip it made to the QA team, they came back with over 150 bugs in the system. most of which have been fixed. And last thing, just a suggestion here. If you guys have ideas, suggestions, thoughts on this skill revamp, go to the Tribble forums, go to the post about this, go to the official thread about this, and post your idea. Do not be shy. The devs are actually reading that, and Bort is actually really good at, replying and looking into things, especially if it's a good suggestion. He's really good at that. So make your suggestions in there. That includes the guys on the panel here, as well as anyone in the audience, our live studio audience.
Agreed. Thank you very much for emphasizing that. We'll make sure we'll include that link to the actual Tribble thread in the show notes as well. When do we actually have an ETN when we're actually going to be able to copy over our major characters? Especially for those who have time to go level a tune. If you know how to do it quickly, go level it, test it out. But do we actually have a time period for when we're able to use the character copy feature to copy our tunes over to Tribble?
I thought
They
this
said
was being
1
blocked
week.
out for a week, right?
Yeah, it's a week, so expect it tomorrow, Friday, maybe.
Good show. All right. We touched on this a little bit earlier. SOB, I know you really want to dive a little bit deeper into this. And since Grim is not here tonight on the show, you're going to have to talk on his behalf. What do you think about the whole concussive tachyon emission fix?
I think that people have been taking it for granted way, way too much. It was obviously a broken ability. There were multiple bug hunter threads on it for a while before we even talked about it, actually. So sadly, all the people blaming us for, nerfing it, well, there you go. But it's just, you're going to have to compensate by actually figuring out how to use abilities and shooting weapons now, instead of just spamming an ability every few seconds. People are just going to have to get over it and get good.
Get good, scrub.
Oh, snap. You people are mean. Yeah, I said you people.
I mean, there's people that can do over 1,000 ground DPS without it, so Qs can still go as fast as they are now. Just really, it's just practice more, get good. Really, that's all it is.
Really, if you think about it, let's be logical here and think with clear heads. If you look at this one reputation active ability and you compare it to every other active reputation ability, you will see that it stands out. It wasn't behaving like the rest of them. So obviously it was a bug and it got fixed. And you know what? I'll take all the blame for it. I'm quite happy to have a few more haters going after me, because the more the merrier. If you don't like it, well, you can go after yourself. Deal with it.
So let me get this straight now. There are actual people who have been complaining that the show has gotten things, quote unquote, nerfed. Really?
I know, I quite enjoyed the tears.
Hold on, let me bring up my special dev panel here. What do you guys want nerfed next? Let me make sure I code this now and get it done.
The Dyson 3-piece?
Consider it done.
Can I get Plasmonic Leech and all Leech-like effects nerfed completely?
Can we remove him from the chat, please?
How about we just nerf everything and call it even?
Shoot! Yeah, let's just nerf everything. Everybody,
So-
we're going to use Mark 1 weapons and shoot.
After that, you need a second round of nerfing for balance, so you could nerf everything.
Want to say that there's some conversations, that none of us here on the show do ground. I've done a bit of ground. Up there,
Ooh,
the top
I do
20,
ground.
30. I don't remember exactly where, but it's around 1,300 ground DPS, which I think is pretty decent. But there were multiple people up near the top of the table that have been requesting this change for a very long time. Ice and Grim at Grimly One is one of them. It's just get over it. That's all I really got to say on it.
We get it. It's gotten fixed. Some people will cry about it. Honestly, it didn't need a fix. The same folks who cried about this thing were the same people who are advocating for a neutronic torpedo fix. Obviously, Chemosite needed to be fixed, not over nerfed. That's being addressed still. It's being worked out. Still, some testing needs to be done. I haven't done my own testing yet because, bleh. But other than that, though, folks, seriously, we actually want things to work properly and have a solid game mechanic structure so that new things can be built without being either stupidly OP that doesn't make the game fun and competitive, or so stupidly underpowered like that freaking torpedo on the damn ground that doesn't do anything when I push a button. I don't want a torpedo that swirls around in the air like a paper plane. I want a torpedo that flies straight to the target and blows it up.
Mr. Worf, Nerf torpedo.
There.
This Cisco rant has been approved.
This Nerf brought to you by the show every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time.
Now, all right, let's sit back a little bit. The 5-minute timers, the 5-minute cooldowns on some of the active abilities seem to be a bit excessive. Maybe you should have a different conversation on this and whether these should actually be reduced a little bit. Perhaps using the new skill revamp system. Maybe there's an unlock or a skill added into that will reduce the cooldowns a little bit. Shave off a minute, maybe make it 4 minutes. Something like that. It's certainly something worth considering. But as long as it's universal and affects all the active abilities, not just one ability.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Now that we have that fun stuff out of the way, Cam, I take it you're going to be talking about some fun stuff here with the return to Oxtabat.
I already talked about it at the start of the show.
I know, but I want to hear a little bit more of it. People said that you had your own grumbly Cisco off of Oxtabat. We want to hear a little bit more out of it.
Like Oxtadefiant. Just remember Oxtadefiant.
No, but we remember that. Go away for a second. Grown folks talking. Why is it realistically? I mean, like, if you see people using Oxtabat and they're putting up good numbers, why is it so bad for them to use Oxtabat?
Well, because you're losing other things in the process. For example, you just off the top of my head, you're losing the bonus you get both defensive and offensively from the Nukara trait. You're losing at least 1 amp, which, in the long run, it adds up. You're giving up 3 DOF places that could use to, boost some of your abilities. You're giving up 2 engineering slots in the process as well. Between 1 and 2 engineering slots, usually it's 2 because people run 2 of those. And, those can be used for some interesting abilities, either defensive or offensive buffs. There's quite a few things that, just to get that cooldown reduction, that universal cooldown reduction, you give up quite a lot of things to get that. And there are alternatives. There's been a lot of alternatives released in the past year and a half, which have made Oxtabat pretty much redundant. Now, it's true some of those might cost a little bit of money, but it's still something that you can grind for. Reciprocity, for example. And even in the skill tree, before we jump into the skill tree, you can get DOFs now from the research lab that will reduce your cooldowns. There are consoles now that will reduce your cooldowns in different areas. There are traits that will reduce your cooldowns in certain areas as well. And then in the skill tree itself, the new revamp in the skill tree, I mean, it's pretty high up in the system, but there is skills for each career or each track that will reduce the cooldown of certain abilities. So tactical has one for tactical abilities, engineering has one for engineering abilities, and science has one as well for, science abilities as well. Also. So there are so many different alternatives that you can use that if you play them smartly, you will not be giving up anything to get those. So, the fourth amp piece, the extra power you get from having maxed auxiliary, the 3 DOF stations, the 2 bridge officer stations, etc. And in reality, let's say you're the Defiant, for example. You have a commander and a lieutenant commander tactical. That's 7 seats already, and plus a ensign if you want. So 8? That's 8 tactical powers in there. So if you want to run Aux to Bat on that, how much do you have to give up? How many engineering powers are you going to have left over if you're running Aux to Bat on the Defiant? In order to get virtual 16 tactical powers, can you use that many tactical powers? Are there that many tactical powers in the game? How many science stations do you actually have to give up for that as well? So you basically turn yourself into a pure gunship, but you're still missing out on some really interesting damage buffs because you just don't have the space for them in engineering or science because you're overloaded on the tacticals. You can't even put any kind of speed onto that ship. Now we're just talking about the Defiant. This goes the same with pretty much all tactically oriented ship. Now there are ships where Aux to Bat is beneficial, mainly cruisers. Certain types of the older cruisers and some of the newer ones as well, where they don't have enough tactical seating. And we're talking about maybe like 4 tac seatings, or even 3 in some cases, where you have 2 ensigns and a lieutenant slot that you can use for tactical. But these ships tend to have a plethora of engineering seats or even science seats, so you can kind of waste some of those engineering slots onto Aux to Bat to make up for the lack of tactical seatings and double up that way, and that can be beneficial. But this whole thing of using Aux to Bat on tactical ships is just dumb, and people eventually will figure it out if they're smart, like we did years ago. I mean, there was a brief period quite a few years ago, and I mean it was very brief.
What do you mean
where,
we, Cam?
Well, I'm getting to that. I'm just getting to that. Where some of us, the high-end DPSers, did use Aux to Bat on scimitars. I actually wasn't part of that. I didn't actually have a scimitar at that point. I'm just saying we, just to, because to include ourselves among the DPSers, there weren't a lot of us back then. Did use it for a very brief period. And so these were some of the best DPSers in the game. And it was actually a matter of weeks and in some cases days where they, looked at it and said, well, this is stupid. This is clunky. This is actually quite awkward to run. It'd be better off not using it. And they quickly dropped it and moved on to different things. But just for that brief period where that Aux to Bat scimitars popped up, it actually got quite a bit of a reputation, and for months afterwards, the forums, the anti-DPSers were raging about those Aux to Bat FA scimitars, which no one used anymore. But who's going to stop those anti-DPS forumites from just spewing their vitriol once they get hooked onto something they just can't stop? But in any event, a lot. I won't say a lot. I'll say some of this also has to do with Spencer being a little bitch trying to troll me.
I run Oxtabat on the Scimitar and the Defiant just to troll you, but I do have one build where I do seriously run Oxtabat. That's my Crenum Imperium warship. It's a bit of an awkward setup.
It is an awkward setup. I know Astro Zombie actually runs something similar, if not the exact same thing, and it will work on that ship. Although I have a Crenum also, and I can get pretty much the same amount of DPS that Astro can get with his ship, not using Oxtabat, and might actually have some more advantages in some different areas because I got the versatility of having, all my Ox power, especially in regards to the science skills. But that's a moot point. That's a very finite distinction there. So I believe that you could probably do a little bit better. Honestly, I think you could probably do a little bit better with your Crenum warship if you switch to a non-Oxtabat build. You might lose out in some spots, but you'll definitely gain more in different locations.
It works quite well as a reciprocity build also with the feedback pulse.
I am one of those dumb people that use Oxtabat as well. I don't see the problem. I like it. I use it. I don't have the EC to afford the other shit. I don't see why you're making such a big deal out of it personally. But hey, if you want to rant on about 10 minutes about how Oxtabat is bad and how you hate it, cool. But I don't see how it affects you personally.
Well, I wasn't actually going to talk about it, but both SOB and Odin seem to want me to talk about it, so here we go.
Yes, I actually brought that
Pack
up.
a one.
Say it slow for us dumb people, though, please.
Well, I'm one of those dumb people because that's what I used at first, without having to work or with reciprocity or all hands on deck.
I still use it.
It brought powers back quickly enough. And ironically, I use it on the Defiant so I can throw down more torpedo power and get a little bit more maneuverability out of the damn thing. And put up my shields faster. Yeah, it worked. And for people out there, we're going to say this. If the build works and you're able to achieve numbers or achieve the objectives without hampering yourself or the team, bottom line is, use it. Yes. What Cam is talking about here, well, actually, no, I'm not going to put words in Cam's mouth. Cam is one of the bleeding edge, high-end, competitive DPS, who also theory crafts to the nth degree. And I agree with his assessment there, that there are other options where, you can get other options out there that'll be better than Oxtabat to perform at the high end. If your goal is to do well in this game, Oxtabat will work for you. If your goal is to attempt to achieve top-end high DPS, Oxtabat is a crutch. Now, if you don't care one way or the other, use it so long as you're not hurting yourself or the team. Have a ball. Enjoy the damn game.
Let me be specific here. I really don't care what people use on their ship, but if you're going to come to me and ask me to give you advice, then you're going to hear my honest opinion. If you're going to ask me about Oxtabat, then you're going to hear me saying that Oxtabat is shit and people who use it are dumb, because that's my opinion, and I'm just not going to I'm not going to filter it for you guys.
I'll sit here and be dumb. That's cool.
What about an Oxtabat Photonic Officer build, Cam?
Alright, so Ox to Photonic Officer, there were 3 people who pioneered this. The first person, I don't even remember what his name was. It was so long ago. Then there was at Agrisol, Tom actually tried it out, or at least he theory crafted it. I don't know if he actually implemented it onto a ship and tested it out. And then there was me, who actually built a ship around this and flew around testing it, seeing what kind of damage it will do. And then I parked it and told people, don't use this if you don't want to have a headache. Because as clunky and as awkward as Oxtabat is, and it is clunky and it is awkward, Ox to Photonic Officer is 10 times worse. It'll work. but it's a massive pain in the ass to get working. Let's just leave it at that.
Okay, so the next thing. For anyone that does a lot of doffing, there is this very lovely bug right now with the Holo Novel storage devices from the Ferengi lockbox. After you run it once on a character, you can never do one again on that character. Whereas a few weeks ago, you could repeat them infinitely, as they were since the release of the Ferengi lockbox. So just be careful with those.
Well, this is a recent development, correct?
I first noticed it back in early January.
Yeah, that needs to be dealt with. Somebody find a bug hunter and report it.
It's a pain because it's a nice little source of EC.
Interesting. Oh, well, there you go. That's the reason right there.
Oh, so you're saying it's a possible intentional nerf and
Well,
was it documented?
If you get a crit, it gives you one of two doffs, either a purple con officer for tacting cooldowns or a purple technician for Oxbat. So they tend to be under 1 million per, and if you have the doffs to crit, it's pretty nice.
A stealth nerf in this game? That would never
It could
ever
be a
happen.
bug. It could be a bug and it just needs to be fixed. Either way, let's get it reported, see what the devs say, and then we'll comment afterwards. Now, Mikey, we're going to move your segment up here before we go on to the videos here. Give me something here on what's this whole reporting AFKers on this, because we saw this a lot with the mirror invasion, where we have people just hop into an SDF and just sit there and do absolutely nothing. What the heck's going on?
I mean, a little part of me, just a small part of me, doesn't want to blame those people just because of the slog of that grind. But it's being a huge dick to do that. Now the thread actually is specific to a subject though. It's from Feisty and she's asking if it really does any good to report these people that are AFKing. And the answer to that is I don't know. That's actually a real frank answer. Does it make you feel better? Probably. There are already mechanics in the game to kind of, punish these AFKers if they do under a certain amount of damage. Is that right, folks? If they do it under a certain amount of damage in a queue, they'll automatically get marked as AFK, and they'll get a, I think, an hour timeout?
1 hour, yes. Except for CCA. 1 hour time.
Sorry, no. It's, first of all, the AFK penalty is 2 hours, I believe. And it's not based on damage, it's actually on participation, which includes damage, healing, science abilities popped off, all that fun stuff.
And I would seriously doubt that the metrics will ever actually be released to what any of those levels are. I wouldn't. So I don't think that Cryptic ever would. But does it do any good? In the context that if a certain player, a given player, receives a lot of reports in a short time span, that player would probably get a closer look as far as their activities in the game. Yeah, I would say do it. It can't hurt, especially if that player is, legitimately AFK and just being a giant Summer's Eve douche to the rest of the team. Again, if that player receives a lot of reports in a short time span, they'll probably get a closer look, closer inspection at their activities in the game. And at the end of the day, that's kind of what we want, is to make sure that people that are just going to ruin the fun for everyone else don't get to play that game. So, yes, that's my opinion on the piece, at least.
Now, we'd actually like to get a dev on here to ask a genuine question about this and whether, one, reporting AFK players would actually be beneficial to them as well as to the rest of the community, and two, is there anything else that they're planning in the future to be able to deal with situations like this, to legitimately catch people who are AFKing, versus the people who go into an SDF, somehow get disconnected through no fault of their own, rejoin and are put in a different instance altogether, and then receive a time ban because they were treated as if they were AFK. Unfortunately, we haven't received a response yet.
Actually, that time ban is treated as a leavers penalty. You get a 1 hour ban for that, and you are, when you get put back into an instance, you're automatically kicked out, which is what then triggers the leavers penalty.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Not a problem.
Just want to mention that before, I don't know if anyone actually remembers this, but before this AFK penalty was implemented, what was it? It's been 2 years now? Maybe 2.5 years? I don't remember the exact time. But before that, every single pug queue, every single one literally had at least one AFKer. It was really bad back then. And the amount of forum threads about the AFKers was too damn high. Mikey,
Yep,
you remember this.
I remember. The general consensus was that AFKers were better than people that would blow up one of the gens and then run off or something like that. Because they're predictable. You know, they don't do shit. That's predictable.
Whoa. So you rather have somebody not do anything so that the other four people
that was the consensus.
I can so see this happening.
The threads were half hang these people that are AFKers and half at least they don't blow up one gen and leave.
Because, yeah, that used to happen as well. They used to have, but it would be literally, we used to have fun with that, actually. You'd have at least 1 or 2 people in every single queue. Every single one. Literally, if you were pugging, you were going to run into an AFK, guaranteed. And, guaranteed.
I built for it back then, and you did too.
And that's why we used the pre-mates. That's why Reddit chat was a thing. The groups in Reddit chat were a thing. That's why the DPS channels were a thing. It wasn't just to, have like high DPS or whatever, or to be elitist and separate ourselves from the rest of the community.
I don't know what you're talking about, Cam. I was elite. I was an elite STF. That's the most elite channel around.
Oh boy, let's not talk about that channel right now, because that had the rules in that channel changed every day. Practically every hour they found new ways to kick people out. But
well, then you would go to public elite STF, because that place was not a shit show ever for any reason.
Well, initially it was pretty good.
And then the second week rolled around.
But we used to do some really fun stuff with the AFKers. For example, Kittimer Space, where we would, kind of kite the cubes from over the transformers on the side over to the center, over to the spawn point, and get the AFKers kicked or killed.
Over and over and over, because we wouldn't do anything but AFKs, so every time they would spawn, the cubes would kill them.
Yeah. And we do the same thing with Azure Nebula. They would hang there in the spawn point. So, all right, we're gonna just kite this 3 right over to where you were. Have fun with that. We did that with ISA. Pretty much every single thing. If there was
so if you saw a guy with like 15 injuries, you knew he was an AFK.
Pretty much, yeah. That was the other thing for recognizing the AFKers. People would not repair their ships. They would just queue over and over and over again, and they wouldn't actually do anything in the meantime. They were just farming stuff that way.
Spot the guy with brain damage on ground. He had like 15, 20 injuries.
So yeah, it's a bit of a long ramble here, but the AFK penalty is actually a good thing at the moment. The game would be massively worse off without it. That's just what I have to say about that.
And now, on to some good news. Some STO videos. Now, I do believe that Happy Mortal has outdone himself yet again, and has put in one video here of High Space Elite with a bit more of a theme to it this time here. Mikey, tell me, please, what happened here?
I'm still sweating a bit. Not just a bit. Well, what this is something you probably don't see every day in STO, and that's really what I like to see is, stuff that you don't see every day. This is the holy quote-unquote trinity, which a lot of people say is a myth, and it kind of is, kind of isn't. That's a discussion way too big for this segment of STO, or the show, to be really honest with you. But the video is basically healers healing, tanks tanking, DPS is DPSing, and science people space magicking in a Hive Space Elite. And being the healer in the particular video, I can tell you that while it was frantic, it wasn't real sweaty. No one was panicking. There weren't a lot of deaths, not from the tank, not from myself. I think there were like 1 or 2 deaths overall, which is kind of nice in a Hive. But I mean, the salient thing of the video is really Happy's camera work. That's the best thing, because you could have the best match ever and not have good camera work, and it's going to be really boring. Watch the video. It's not boring, and you get to see everyone doing their thing. It's really rare to see something like this. Like I said, I don't know that many other healers. I still don't know that many other tanks that are brave enough to venture into Hive Elite. So we want to see more of that for sure.
Thank you for the assessment. Now, Sarcasm Detector, you have 3 videos up here featured on this. One of them we discussed earlier as far as the new skill tree revamp and discussion on it, which I actually did listen to, and I actually learned a couple things about it, including a couple things that made me shake my head going, why? But I wanted to thank you very much for that work. What about this one here? What shakedown video did you put out recently?
Oh, so that would be the Yorktown class. I finally got to produce the video. The Yorktown is the Tier 6 version of the Science Odyssey. So it's not too long of a video. I basically, do my regular nice flyby shots, trying to kind of mimic the shuttle flyby that a captain would do of his ship. And, showing the different shield visuals. Of course, there's a link to another video that has action shots. And I go over my build and give some general thoughts and opinions on the ship itself. I absolutely love the Yorktown. Mikey will probably back me up on here. We're both extremely biased towards the Science Odysseys.
I am excited. It's definitely an improvement in every single way, including Cam. This is the big gotcha that I don't really see in reviews of the Yorktown, but I think I spotted it in yours, or you talked about it. But it's inertia.
Did I mention? I don't remember if I mentioned it. I think I talked about it on the show last time, or when it was initially released. It's got higher inertia. The Yorktown has higher inertia than the actual Tier 5 Audis. This was something that they implemented.
And it's definitely a difference, so heads up. If you're a committed Audi pilot, it's probably going to be one of the first things you actually notice.
Yeah, if you're used to how it used to fly, it doesn't slide as much as it used to. It still does, but it's
a little bit lighter on its feet, just a little bit. And it, in really tight situations, I've noticed it's an edge. It's a serious maneuverability edge.
I would use the word perky. It's definitely
it's a little bit perky, especially because space is cold.
Now, TimberWolf, have you flown to Yorktown yet?
Yes, I have, and I have to agree with Cam on that one. I love the ship. I'm trying to follow some in his steps as far as some of his builds are doing. I'm trying to make a tank out of her. She does not slide the way that she used to. It's been a learning curve to modify my piloting, but I can't say that it's a bad thing. I've actually been seeing higher numbers initially from the T5U Psioti, and I just like how she flies. I like the extra psi ability. I enjoy flying her.
Love the command seating. That's a big deal for me with Rally Point. I know it's not such a huge deal for everybody, and it's not really the seating that people wanted. They wanted intel, but command suits me just fine.
So I do have some sad news. I know people have been asking me to do the Sojourner and the Endeavor. I've tried flying the Sojourner, and sadly, folks, I have decided not to do a review video on that. Just the ship, I just feel really disappointed in it. I really don't feel happy flying it. And basically, for me, the ship is mediocre in all things. So it wouldn't really be an enjoyable video, so I'm not going to do that. Taking a little bit.
It'd be interesting for you to go into in depth at some point on some medium as to why you don't like it. I am curious.
Yeah, it probably will be extensive. In the meantime, I'm just taking a break. I'm flying my Tarantula at the moment, having fun with that, but I will be jumping into the Endeavor a little bit later on and giving that a try. But sorry, for the moment, no plans to make a Sojourner video. As for the other two videos that you mentioned, the two videos on the skill revamp, it's actually one video. So the first one is the stream I did on, was it Thursday? I don't remember if it was Thursday or Friday when the thing was actually released. It's
Friday.
a bit over two. Thank you, Friday. So it's a bit over 2 hours. And what I did was I edited it down to about an hour, like chopped off the actual run through the tutorial because it was mandatory. You had to do the tutorial plus some extra futzing about. Unfortunately, that 1 hour video turned out very fuzzy, and I don't feel like going back and re-rendering that stuff. So what I recommend is actually watching the 2.5 hour video. I've put time codes in the video description that will take you to the appropriate spots in the video, which actually look at the skills themselves. You'll be able to see them a little bit clearer than going to the 1 hour video that's just fuzzy as heck. Might actually take that one down.
Well, when you do put up a new one, we'll be sure to include the link on there. And oh, hi! We have our guest here, who's actually done a video here that we're featuring. So, hi, sir, with the red animation there saying Zeph Films. Could you introduce yourself to the rest of the panel here? And please tell us what your video was all about.
Yeah, I am, videos just of the paradox, just showing it off. I had to do it in Tribble because I can't afford the ship in the holodeck, so somebody was able to hook me up with it in Tribble, and I did a little thing, and that was it.
Just a little thing? Not a big thing? Just a little thing?
More or less.
If you were a little bit less humble, maybe you'd be more well known.
No.
Yeah, we were actually, man, we were worried it would go to your head and you'd become slightly less polite.
Yeah. You're being Canadian and all.
No, I don't like to boast or be one of those. No, that's not me. I don't like talking about my own shit, to be honest.
But your stuff does get featured on like top MMO websites, and even Trek Yards did a little bit of feature on your stuff right there. But they used some of your footage, yes?
Not footage.
Not footage, but the actual shot itself of your ship.
Images. Yeah, I think they just pull it off of Google Images, really. Because I've done like.
Wait, are you telling me that Google knows who you are?
Knows the Manicore.
That's
Like, if you Google image search right now, Manicore, I can probably guarantee you that the first or second image is one of mine because I like the Manicore that much.
See, we can't joke about him being unknown if Google has indexed him, Marshall.
Hold on. I'm doing this right now.
Oh, dude, Marshall is Googling you. I don't know. Can we do this live?
Oh no!
No, you have to Google
DPS after dark.
Manicore, not Zeph Films, Manicore.
Sin, actually, we ask That we asked that question quite often. The question was from Syndustries: why is Cryptic not throwing ships at Zeph?
We've
Well, that is an excellent question.
All right, so yeah, if you Google images STO Manicore, the second image is mine, which is the one that
USS
we used.
Ulysses.
How many ships you think that Alan here has helped sell there, Marshall?
I could tell you just for a fact from his videos, he sold 5 ships, and 2 of them were the Oddie packs.
I mean, you know, the beautiful work from the designers and concept artists aside, it really seems like sometimes Cryptic doesn't put a lot of work into, you know, actually displaying the beautiful bits of the art they're putting out, and all of the community seems to come together to do that, at least in my opinion, the best.
The man makes people buy ships. Case closed. In any case, now that we made that point clear yet again, everybody sit down, relax, take a deep breath, because your butt's about to go back to school. TeacherKirby, class is in session. Teach these kids a lesson.
Thanks for the sound effects there. Okay, yeah, so I did my teacher's corner this week on the invasive control programming. This is a nice little trait for builds that have control abilities like Gravwell, surprisingly photonic shockwave, tractor beam repulsors, what was the other one? Scramble sensors, jam sensors, and tractor beam. What it does is when you apply one of these abilities to any target that is affected by this ability, it applies a 4-second shutdown of a random subsystem, which is just awesome. So I want to be clear, that means it is not only the primary target, it is any target that's affected by it. So it really makes it, if you have a decent Gravwell or a decent photonic shockwave that hits a lot of things, it can really be nasty. So it's a nice little trait. When I did the video, it was pretty cheap, but I've heard reports that it's gone up in price since then. So, yeah. So you might want to get it while it's hot, or while it's cheap, while it's still affordable. If you have a Gravwell or one of these other abilities that triggers it. But yeah. And then I'm going to continue on to this week in Trek. So actually, there's only one thing on there. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Hold on. I think I talked about this particular ability either last week or the week before. And
you did.
I have to admit that I absolutely love it. I absolutely love this ability. And there's something I do. So there's a combination, a really nice combination that I'll do on some of my science ship, which is Gravwell 3 and Scramble Sensors 2 or 3, but I don't remember which one it is on the Lieutenant Commander slot. And you can get a DOF that has a chance to knock the engine's subsystem offline. I think it's a ticking chance. Every tick, it has a 20% chance to knock it off per second of Gravwell. So you use that Gravwell, and you have this particular trait, and you have the scramble sensor. So what you do is you hit your Gravwell, it'll grab a whole bunch of enemies, bunch them all together, and you have 1 or 2 subsystems shut off right there on all that group. Why I say 1 or 2? Because if the trait itself shuts down the engine subsystem, then the DOF doesn't actually kick in, or it won't do anything. But if the DOF kicks in first, shuts off the engine subsystem, the way things work, when the trait procs, it'll ignore any subsystem that's already shut down and move on to the next. So instead of being a 1 in 4 chance of shutting down a subsystem, one of those 4 subsystems, it'll move on to 1 and 3. So that's 2 subsystems shut down. Then you hit them with the scramble sensor, and you have 3 subsystems shut down. Absolutely fantastic, especially if you time it right with either your burst, so cannon, scatter, volley, torpedo spread, fire at will. It will melt things unbelievably fast. Because when things are, when they have their engines shut down and possibly their shields or their aux or even their weapons, things just drop. They just die. They just drop dead. For parsing, it doesn't look too good because they die so quickly. You don't have a chance to rack up the damage numbers in there, especially if their shields are down or their resistances go down because their aux has been shut off. But like, I swear, in seconds, like sphere groups in ISA solo just hit the grav well, scramble sensors, bam, they're dead. Matter of seconds. It's quite spectacular to see, actually. Sorry, I just wanted to gush over that a little bit. But
no, awesome. That is awesome, and you're absolutely right. It is a sight to on. Great little trait. So pick one up if you're using, especially that combination that Cam mentioned, the gravel and the scramble sensors. Awesome trait. Moving on, this week in Trek. So February 23rd, in an alternate 1936, Edith Keeler meets President Roosevelt to confer on her plan of action for assisting the needy. That's from the original series, The City on the Edge of Forever. First time we see the Guardian, and that was from the Memory Alpha site. Also, a year ago, I forget whether it was the 23rd or the 24th, but this is the 1-year anniversary of Leonard Nimoy's death. So those 2 things in Trek for this week. Moving on.
Can I add something to your TeacherKirby thing?
Yes. Sure.
First off, everybody who's listening to this, I have 1 invasive control programming trait in my inventory, so after the show, once it's published, if you comment with your Star Trek Online @handle, I will pick a winner by random, and I will be giving that winner an invasive control programming box. So do it.
Alan,
Wow.
phrasing.
Thank you very much.
Nice.
TimberWolf and I have a couple of things. Oh, sorry. Go on, Kirby.
I was going to say we just had a price check on the exchange. Sean Seacrest note says it's selling for $4.8 million right now. Just to note, it was at $200K when I did my video this morning or this afternoon. Yeah.
There's one other thing. This week in Trek, I can't remember if it was Tuesday or Monday, but it was Jerry Ryan's birthday. So happy birthday out to the 7 of 9.
Happy birthday, Jerry Ryan.
Wasn't it Al Rivera's birthday a couple of days ago? Yesterday? Today?
Actually,
maybe?
I think it's today. That's right. Gecko's birthday is today. If I read the Twitter stuff right.
Happy birthday, Al.
Whether it was today or yesterday, happy birthday, Mr. Gecko.
TimberWolf, go ahead.
May there be many tiny starship models in your future, sir.
Well, before I start, I will say something that Salaknar in chat said. We do also have a memorial date coming up in a few days for Leonard Nimoy. I know that's probably going to be a lot of people's time of reflection. So just being mindful of that. Nimoy passed away February 27th of last year. I'm sure there are going to be some services in-game being done in remembrance of him. So you'll also probably see some extra posts coming up. For my news, Odin loves giving me paperwork. I'll just say that out loud. We have an official legal response from Axanar. Their official response to Paramount and CBS. They have filed official paperwork. We have their full motion and a link from the Hollywood Reporter, a legit motion, and what they're asking for in their response is they're wanting a definition of who owns what. They've kind of got a blanket statement of they infringed on thousands of copyrights, but they want to know what they infringed on, how they infringed on it. They're stating that because it was such a broad spectrum, and since CBS and Paramount both have entered this, they want a who owns what response and who did they violate. The implications are that CBS and Paramount, from what I've read, Odin, and from what I've had one or two of my paralegals read over that I have on staff, basically Paramount and CBS have to explain in court legally what Star Trek is. And they have to define it. And not just define what they've done legitimately, but the expanded universe. The comparison was made that when Disney bought Star Wars, they crushed the expanded universe. They wanted it, it's fine, but they didn't want it tied to anything they were doing. But here, since they haven't done that with Star Trek, it's very much a large gray area for what is Trek as far as its definition. So they're going to make CBS and Paramount in court define what Trek is, along with their response that the lawsuit should be flagged as premature, unripe, and would constitute an impermissible prior restraint on speech, since the film is not finalized and there are multiple variations of their script. So it's very interesting that their response came out on Monday and how it's worded. Like I said, the full motion is listed in the link that we'll have for those of you in the legal system. It's going to be a very good read for you guys. But definitely I'm seeing it as a positive turn for Axanar, considering all that they're stating and everything they're going over in their motion. Could actually get all of this dismissed against them so they could continue going back to work. What do you think, Odin? Have you been able to read over this?
I
Or
have
anybody
not been
else?
able to read over this yet. Has anybody else read it yet or read what the response is?
Yeah, I've actually read through it, and it's actually pretty interesting. I think the most important part of that is the fact that there hasn't been anything filmed yet. So the script is still up in the air. There's multiple copies of the script. The movie hasn't been. I think they might have started filming, or they're just about to start filming. There's no movie yet. So how can you sue the movie for violating copyrights if there's no movie in the first place?
They have released.
Well, yeah, I know they've released some the prequels and a scene here or there, maybe just one scene, but there's still no movie really. And they're not suing the prelude to XNR, they're suing for the actual movie. So, like I said, there's no movie yet. How can they sue it? You cannot sue beforehand, if you know what I mean. So they can't say, no, we're going to sue you for infringing on copyrights that you will violate. That is a breach of the First Amendment, like Timber just mentioned there. You cannot shut them up beforehand, so to speak.
Yeah, it's something that they've stated. It even says in here in the article that there's multiple copies of the script still being revised and rewritten. But until the film is completed, the court will not be able to compare defendants' films with the relevant Star Trek films and episodes at issue to determine whether anything is substantially similar. And without a film, the court can't evaluate the purpose or character of defendant's film. So they have nothing to go on since it's not even there. So the court has no way to legitimize any copyright infringements when the script is still being rewritten. They don't even have footage for it or anything. They don't even have a definable script yet.
Copyright and patent law is something that gives people a headache when they look at it. and intellectual property law, I should say. And there are so few attorneys that go into it, let alone that are good at it. And that's why you get issues like this coming up whenever people have IP defenses or IP, quote unquote, IP wars, where they could sit on something that somebody else legitimately owns, but or has the rights to, but will then just sue the pants off of them continuously and keep them in court until they either relinquish the patent or the IP rights to a bigger company, or in some other cases, bully other people to not come up with something that's better. Now, are there legitimate defenses for it? Yes, there are. This is one of those things where the courts will have to decide whether CBS and Paramount Studios are trying to make a legitimate defense of their property, their intellectual property here. There's also a part where fair use comes into play, where we have to understand, is what Axon are doing any different than what all the other literally hundreds of other independents doing out there and trying to keep the franchise alive for so long? CBS is going to have to defend that as well. Now,
Well, the
there
gray
will be
area,
something.
Odin.
Well, yeah, of course, there's a gray area there with that.
Well, the
too.
gray area owns into the fact that Paramount and CBS are both a part of this. However, Axonar is being billed as a film, not a television show. And what's happened over the years is Paramount has taken over all movie rights. CBS has television rights. But now they've both come into this at the same time, and that's one of the definitions of this motion is the defendants in this case with Axonar and Alec Peters, they want to know who owns what. Because there's supposed to be a defined separation between the two companies as far as what they own and what they don't own. And right now they're trying to come in at the same time saying they both own Star Trek, whether it be name or intellectual property. And from what these paralegals have read it for me and given me the verbatim, they both can't claim the name for this suit. It has to be one or the other who owns movie rights, since this is movie rights. Whereas CBS, since they have television rights, they would have a better standing if they would have tried this with Star Trek Continues, because that's been more of an episodic deal that's been going on. And this is merely a movie. This would be Paramount's ground. Why is CBS involved? So there's a definite gray area there between the two companies, potentially of them just trying to hold on to the IP and say, we're Paramount and CBS, we own this in whatever regard, you have to back down. And I think with their wording of how the original lawsuit was, they left a gray area open for Axonar to say, okay, well, who owns what? Who are we really fighting? Who owns the rights for all of it when it comes to regard of what we're doing as a film? I think that's where the gray area kicks in.
Cue Captain Picard double facepalm moment right now, because this is just going to cause a headache for a whole bunch of attorneys, and somebody's going to get a lot of money out of this, and it's not going to be CBS, and it's not going to be Axonar.
Or Paramount. Oh, well, what about Star Trek Renegades?
Exactly.
So that was released, and that was a movie, and that had, stuff from
What
Voyager.
about Star Trek Renegades?
Let's not get into that part of the conversation, but that was released, and there was no brouhaha over that. There was no, people suing left, right, and center.
I mean, if anything, they'd get
And
sued.
really, yeah.
Damaging the reputation of the property. It's pretty bad.
Well, I mean,
But
strictly from a
that's
copyright.
the point. Go ahead.
Strictly from a copyright standpoint, I mean, you have the original actors reprising their original roles in a, independent or non, in
And
a
it's
not
it's a
supported
variety of actors too.
production. Yeah,
From
it
all the
is.
different properties, from Voyager, from original series. Tuvok has been in multiple series, things like that.
We're going to come back
Yeah.
to this later on, because this obviously needs a whole think tank full of lawyers and IP specialists and a couple judges at this point here, because there's something to be said when you have too restrictive an IP that nothing can actually be done, but you have too loose an IP that some people will have a hard time trying to defend their innovation, and they won't be able to make a living off of it if you can't defend it at all. But if it's too restrictive, you have one group having a monopoly over this to the point that 6 or 7 other people can build something much better than that, but because the IP is so overbearing and so broad in its reach that it would hamper any new innovation that could stem from it. So we need to find, as a society, we need to find the right balance between having an IP that protects your initial creators, yet not be so restrictive that anybody else who comes up with an even better idea and a better concept can execute that. So this is something we'll have to come back to a bit later on with this. One thing I did actually want to do, a quick shout out to Will Stape. He's done some writing for The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. And he has a book out there called Star Trek Sex. And it's analyzing some of the sexual themes within some of the episodes of the original series. Excuse me. Yes. Which, at first you're thinking, this should be the book of Captain Kirk's exploits. But it seems to go into it a little bit more, including how Star Trek itself has kind of pushed the boundaries on television and what can be shown and what can be implied and what can actually be done on national TV. So check it out. I'll put the link in there to his Twitter feed. You'll also be able to find the book on Google Play, Amazon, pretty much anywhere and everywhere you'll be able to get a book, whether it's digital format or in physical form. Now, TimberWolf, cap us off this week in Sci Tech.
Well, you know me, Odin. Whenever I can find stuff, I give it to you to look over in the sci-tech realm. I might not know everything in the technical spec, but at least I try to read up on it and give you a good review. The first thing I have is a Star Trek-like medical device. Now, it's not just anyone. It is basically what I see as the start of the dermal regenerator technology. And it's using a laser-like device on damaged tissue to heal it. And the process is basically removing electrons from nearby collagen molecules. And what it's saying is because the molecules are finding themselves missing an electron and out of balance, they're binding to one another to make up for the imbalance, forming a natural seal for your skin to heal more rapidly. So the implications are using something like this on anything from a cut on the finger to a surgical scalpel cut. Instead of having stitches and it's slowly healing, it'd be very similar to what Beverly Crusher or the Doctor from Voyager would use, where he'd simply just put it on your skin. Within a few seconds, your skin is healed. No scarring, no damage to the surrounding tissue, very, very, very little invasion, if any at all. It would possibly put, in the long run, sutures and stitches to obsolete status. Just like Bones would say, are we in the Dark Ages? So I found that interesting, considering with all the surgery that we do now, if this becomes a legitimate standard, then surgeries would be a lot less on your healing time, your downtime, because once it's done, your body's still got to heal, but your tissue, your skin tissue, does not. It would already be taken care of same day. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I was scrolling through Facebook and I found that. I just didn't know if you or Cam had gotten to read up on it.
I had a little bit of a brief reading on this beforehand from a different site, and it uses a medical dye along with a little bit of a gel, and then the laser more or less energizes that dye and gel to where it can start grabbing electrons from near the skin area. And as you said, it'll grab a free electron out from the collagen. And so the collagen at the molecular level is trying to look to fill up that empty slot where the electron used to be. So say, hey, can I borrow your electron? We'll share it for a bit. And as they start sharing it, they're binding together. So all of that collagen right now is kind of come up at the electron level and say, oh, yeah, let's stick together, let's stick together, let's stick together. And they're sticking together at the molecular level to where they have a nice, clean seal. It's your skin right there bonded together. That is freaking genius.
It is. Now I wonder, will it be as pristine as what we see on Star Trek? Does it still leave a scar? How far away are we from practical use? These are things that I wonder.
Probably a ways away from like standard practical use. From what it's been described, there is little to no scar tissue whatsoever.
None.
Because of how it's healing.
None.
So you're probably not going to see any scar tissue, especially once this becomes a new standard. It's just going to be one day you go in, you get cut open for, let's say, a minor surgery. The next day you wake up from your anesthesia, and there is no scar whatsoever. You couldn't even tell that they cut you open.
Now, mind you, if you go for any type of invasive surgery, even a minimalistic one, you are going to have some sort of don't move so much because your insides still need to repair themselves. But this takes care of the surface tissue. Now, mind you, people downplay the skin, but the skin is one very important organ. That stops a lot of infection from hitting your body. So if you don't have to tend to sutures, tend to staples to make sure that that area is clean constantly and there's no pus or anything like that you have to deal with, you're letting your body say, hey, look, I'm sealed up nicely. I don't have to worry about attempting to clean a wound because I don't have one. That's brilliant. That's freaking brilliant.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is. It really is. I would have loved to have something like that when I had my surgery last November. That would have been absolutely awesome to not have to worry about that.
And what's the other one you have here? Timber.
Well, the other one is for blood sampling. Now, for Cam, and I know Cam does this a little bit more than me, I work more with blood plasma. He deals with more of actual blood. It's for how we take the samples, which nowadays is through a needle and a tube, a collection tube, drawing it out of your system using a vacuum tube. Whereas this new sampling procedure is needle-free. It's using an ability called capillary action, which I actually had to look up. And it's the best way that I am reading this is it is able to almost use a vacuum on your skin and pull the blood through your skin without damaging any tissue. So it is without leaving any marks, any scarring, or any kind of needle point. It simply draws the blood through your skin into the device, into a blood tube, and then you remove the tube and it instantly goes to wherever it needs to go for sampling. So there's no skin damage or anything like that to your system. It's not putting any kind of needle in your artery or your vein. It simply just draws it directly from your skin, through your skin, I should say. And they're saying it's a lot easier, a lot cleaner.
Interesting. All right, so there's a few different ways to actually get blood out of someone. Usually, when someone's going for a blood test, there's two ways to do it. You get a venipuncture, which is you get a phlebotomist or a nurse or a doctor, whoever's doing the puncture, will come in. They'll insert a needle into your vein. Usually, if you're an adult, it's on the inner side of your elbow. Although there's other locations like the back of the hand or the top of the foot. And if you're really unlucky, maybe the groin area. But that's like the deep vein stuff. So pray you don't have to do that, because I think that's for tuberculosis, really. But going off here, the other way of doing it is from the capillaries. Usually this is the type of test you see that's done for diabetics, where they use a lance to make a puncture on a fingertip, for example, and then you squeeze out a drop onto a test strip, whatever it is. Um, there are a couple other tests that use this method, and what we usually have is tubes. They're very small, extremely thin glass tubes. And what the capillary action does is that it's basically surface tension of the blood itself. So you use a lance to make a puncture at the end of a fingertip. You squeeze a little bit so you get a drop of blood out, and then you just touch the end of the glass tube onto the blood drop, and it will get sucked right in. Now it's a literal tube. There's like openings on both ends. There's no vacuum to suck the blood out. It's just the surface tension of the blood itself that draws it into the tube. That's what's called a capillary action. And then basically you put you kind of shove the tube into some wax to seal off one end, and you can do the testing that way. I put it in a centrifuge, for example. But this, I'm can't quite wrap my head around this. So where is it actually drawing the blood from? Is it you put it next to a vein and draw it out that way, or is it from actually capillary blood from like extremities?
From what it's looking like, it's actual capillary blood from what they are referencing.
So that's kind of interesting, although you can't really draw a lot of blood that way. Capillary blood is really diffused.
Yeah, but I don't think it's meant to draw a lot of blood that way. They just want a small sample.
Well, I guess it'll be good for some tests, but not for a lot. Now the reason, let me describe something. The reason why, if you ever get your blood drawn, you'll notice, especially if you have to do a big battery of tests, you'll notice that the technician has a lot of different colored tubes, or the tops of the tubes are all different colors. It's for the different departments that do the testing. So you have like chemistry, for example, biology. There's like half a dozen different departments that will test blood for different reasons, and they all either need different components of the blood. Even it might not actually be like the blood itself, the red blood cells. They might want the serum, which is basically the other liquids that's in the blood, minus the red blood cells and minus the coagulant factors, for example. Remove all the coagulant factors, you got serum. You have the coagulant factors in there, it's plasma. But also the chemicals inside the tubes, you either have preservatives or anticoagulants in the blood that preserve it, and they're reversible in different ways. Or you have stuff that actually makes the blood coagulate. For example, if you have a yellow top tube, which we call a serum separation tube, once you draw the blood in there, it actually coagulates, forms a clot. You put it in the centrifuge, and it separates the clot from the serum. And that's for the chemistry department, where they actually test the chemistry of the serum for components in there. I don't see how this is going to be useful in that regard, because some of these extra chemicals, like you have potassium citrate, sodium citrate, EDTH, ethyl diamine tetraacetic acid. Heparin is another one there, which is actually rat poison, by the way. Completely harmless to humans. Other stuff as well. I don't see how that actually factors in from just a little device where you press a button.
Well, we'll read up on it. We'll make our own comments with it within the actual show notes itself, either on the YouTube channel or the Reddit thread, or both, or heck, even on the ARC forums. So we'll definitely continue this discussion offline and see where it goes.
Oh, and yeah, and as Thoth mentioned, capillary blood is definitely different. Like the arterial blood, the venous, sorry, blood from the veins. I'm trying not to get too complicated here, or the blood from the capillaries, which is kind of diffused and a mix of both. The components in them are different. Sorry, guys, I went too medical on you.
It's okay. It's all right. It's all good. They want to
Knowledge
know how
is
to
power.
space pew pew and everything
I
else. We
forgot
just
what
drop
we were
a couple
talking
5 minutes. It's all good though. But thank you very much, everybody, for listening to the show. We'll bring you more fun stuff from Zeph Films out there now that we actually know who he is, and we actually have paperwork on this guy now.
Hey,
Wow, paperwork.
speaking about learning something, do you know that red blood cells don't have any DNA in them?
Yes. Shocker.
Isn't blood actually purple when it's in your body, but turns red when oxygen hits it?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And not all blood is red on all of the animals on this planet. Aha!
Some
Now,
have blue blood, like the crab.
like a crab. Exactly. So, from everybody here on the show, and SOB's already gone and blowing people up already. Yes, we'll see you in game sometime, somewhere in there. Go play on Tribble, level up a couple tunes, leave some comments on the Tribble test thread. Let them know what you think about the skill tree and how it is as you are leveling up. Try it out. See what happens. And then bring your big boy in when we can copy him over and then test it at the end game. We'll see you out there. Have a good night, folks.
Good night, folks.
Good night.
Good night.